Okay, so I'm gonna level with you guys. I just play every beat 'em up I find. It does not matter what the beat 'em up is, I just play it. In this case, it's based on a TV show, Mucha Lucha, which is actually a pretty good TV show. It's pretty funny, has very interesting, colorful characters. So how this game works is there are 4 worlds, there are 3 stages where you fight bad guys, and there's a mini-boss in each of the 3 stages. It's the same mini-boss for all 3 stages, and the mini-boss appears very frequently. Not in the first stage of each set, though. So, it's fairly formulaic, I think you could say. How the enemies work is there's one type of enemy that's weak to punches, and there's one type of enemy that's weak to kicks. And those are the only 2 enemies. You dodge by jumping, and your jump kicks do slightly more damage. Now, there's a lot of things I feel like I would like about this game. I like that it managed to create some kind of strategy around a very simple 2-button system, where, you know, one of the enemies is weak to your kicks, one of them is weak to your punch, and in theory, mixing the enemies together would be very hectic and challenging, but it's really not. We just end up smacking the punch or kick button a whole lot. And the stages are really long. They're not, okay, they're like 8 minutes long each, because, you know, I guess they figured that they needed to stretch the game length out because they didn't want kids to play a game that was only an hour or so long. If this game were shorter, I think I would enjoy it significantly more. But yeah, that's the basic design. Some enemies are weak to punches, some are weak to kicks, and sometimes they get stunned when you do jump attacks. That's about it. Also, the mini-bosses are weak to either punches or kicks, and let's say a mini-boss is weak to punches, enemies that are weak to kicks will jump in, so that way you have to switch it up. There's a little bit of design here, and I feel like it could have been used for something really nice. I just don't feel like it turned out very well. They tried to introduce new elements to keep the player interested, too. Like, in the previous world, there were enemies that were stunned simply by you punching and kicking them, while in this world you have to jump, kick, or punch them after you hit them several times in order to stun them. You know, it adds a little bit of extra strategy, but when the stages are so long, it just becomes very tiresome very quickly. And in the world after this one, they add large enemies that you have to grapple onto that are not very easily hurt by your regular punches and kicks. So they keep trying to add more complexities, but it's very hard to reach a point where the game becomes complex enough that you want to keep playing until the end. Because for the most part, no, for the entirety of each set of 3 stages, everything is exactly the same. What you're seeing right here, I'm going to be doing it again in the next stage and the stage after that, but with a mini-boss thrown in every second screen or so. And they're going to be several minutes longer. That's exactly how the game works, and that's the reason why it's not fun. It could be fun if it were shorter and they paced their rewards better. New gameplay mechanics, new, you know, stuff like that. There are also special attacks. I have not used my special attack yet, but special attacks are very welcome because using one completely clears the screen of enemies, even mini-bosses. Basically, this game is just intensely mind-numbing, and like, if you were on like a really, really long car ride or something, and you are so easily entertained or there's nothing else to do, I can see this being a reasonable distraction under that circumstance. It's definitely not something that was ever intended to be played outside of the portable game context. It's like something you play while you're in your mom's car on the way to Tumbleweed or something. It's just that normally when I play beat-em-ups, even if initially I find them frustrating or I don't understand, usually the game reveals itself to be more fair or complex or interesting than I originally intended, simply by using something in its core gameplay that I wasn't aware of. And this game tries to do that. It tries to have a simple strategy, and it tries to have simple rewards for the player, and it follows a very simple, satisfying structure. It's just too long for its own good, and it doesn't pace it out well. I can't decide whether that's the developer's fault or what. Either way, the bosses are pretty awful. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead because the rest of the stage is like this and just show you the bosses. You do get a score screen, and you'd have to be kind of, like, brain dead in order to not get an A+. Even if you don't get all the enemies, you still get an A+, even if you don't explore the secret areas at all. So, time for the bosses. If you let the bosses move, they run back and forth across the screen. If you don't feel like letting them move, this works fine. You just smash the attack button and they will never move. All of them. All of them get stumbled like this. They don't even attempt to get out. And you can grapple them. Grappling them has no strategic advantage whatsoever, but you can grapple them and kick them in the face. That's a special function they have. But yeah, all the bosses work like that. All of them. When you beat a boss stage, you get a new attack or a new character. The new attacks don't do anything, they all just clear the screen regardless of what they are or what they're named or anything. No factors at all in there. So let's go back a boss just to prove I'm not lying. And this guy works exactly the same. I'm gonna let him run back and forth eventually, but you get the idea. Just gonna stomp on his nipple here. So yeah, they run back and forth, and my attack missed. But they run back and forth, and that's pretty much all they do. And you can stomp them into the corner whenever you feel like it, with no consequences. You don't have to try or anything. You can also punch them, but I find stomping is a little more entertaining. And that's pretty much the whole game. What you saw is pretty much a condensed version of the entire game. Usually I feel bad for saying that because there's really no way to condense a game most times. Usually you're missing something in the design. But no, that's pretty much it. I recommend this to 12-year-old me, but anybody else, no, probably not. Probably not.